A day in the life, Charles takes on Fairview. The community of Fairview located outside of the city of Calgary in what was once agricultural land. In 1956, the city annexed the land, establishing the neighborhood in 1959, followed by the incorporation of the Community Association in 1960. Around the same time, a large industrial area was emerging to the north. It became known as Manchester and Fairview Industrial, and includes the top portion of Fairview. This concurrent development created a unique mix of industrial and residential land uses in close proximity. With the inevitable passage of time, the population aged, and children moved away from home. As the original resident demographic changed, several new waves of young families populated the area, living in the mainly single-family homes on large lots. With the influx of newer families and a sprawling city that confined the community between major roadways, it became apparent that an assessment of the future of the neighborhood was needed. Today, Fairview is a well-established neighborhood located in the southeast quadrant of the city, close to Chinook Mall and two light rail transit stations. As of 2014, the area is comprised of 3,837 residents, where the majority are between the ages of 20 to 64 years. The neighborhood is situated between the large industrial area of Manchester to the north and the larger community of Acadia to the south. Let's take a look at some of the concerns facing the neighborhood from the perspective of one of its residents. We will follow Charles, a University of Calgary student, in his daily activities in the community.
Charles is departing the university, using public transport for the commute home. He will take the train for about 30 minutes, where he will disembark at Chinook LRT station.
Chinook station is located just north of the community of Fairview. This is where Charles begins his journey through Fairview. However, this station is not well connected to the community. Charles misses the bus from the station and is forced to embark upon an unpleasant walk along Fairmount Drive, with its narrow and unkept sidewalks that place pedestrians very close to the busy roadway. There are no pedestrian-oriented amenities along this route, with industrial and commercial uses isolating the sidewalks between parking lots and the busy road.
Charles makes his way along this dreary route, eventually coming to a local restaurant where he purchases a coffee before continuing his commute. He crosses Fairmount Drive at a busy, unsignalized crosswalk, before taking a shortcut through an alley.
The neighborhood is mainly comprised of the original single-family homes, mostly bungalows, with a few apartment buildings on the western edge, closest to the high-traffic areas. The major roads and warped grid block pattern define the land uses within the residential area, with commercial and industrial zoning on the periphery. The commercial and industrial spaces that border 3 of the 4 sides of the community have minimal separation from the residential areas.
There are some interesting sights along this alley for our resident, some more pleasant than others, such as this eclectic RV, and some less pleasant such as this unsightly industrial silo.
Due to the location, the neighborhood is extremely car-orientated, limiting the types of transportation residents can use to travel easily within and out of the area. This creates concerns for residents who wish to use alternative means of transport to obtain basic amenities or engage in social activities.
After a small accident, Charles is all right and has nearly arrived home.
Key areas of community interaction and social gatherings focus on the 2 small commercial areas, and on an even smaller scale, the small park areas throughout the neighborhood. There is no central meeting place within the community, such as a landmark piece of public art or community center. The local community center was sold and is now occupied with Indefinite Arts Association and the Fairview Women's Hockey Arena Society.
Charles has now made it home and is quite hungry after a long day. He heads to the kitchen only to be disappointed with an empty fridge. He decides to visit the nearest retail area to get some groceries. He figures taking the bus along Fairmount Drive may be a safer option this time.
There are multiple bus routes that pass through Fairview, most originating at Chinook Station, servicing Fairview as well as many communities further south via Fairmount Drive. During times of congestion, these buses pass through frequently, but are restricted to the speed and flow of traffic, which can cause delays at the intersection of Fairmount Drive and Heritage Drive. Fairview is surrounded by 4 major roads, to the north by Glenmore Trail and 66 Avenue South, to the east by Blackfoot Trail, to the south by Heritage Drive and the west by McLeod Trail. Fairmount Drive, which runs directly through the community, can get very busy with relatively high traffic speeds at certain times of day, such as the morning and afternoon rush hours.
Charles gets off the bus just south of Heritage Drive and heads towards the shopping plaza. He enters the Shoppers Drug Mart to get the essential groceries. This is his closest option, but there is a limited selection. He is tired of student budget-friendly frozen pizza and decides he would like to go to a real grocery store.
Major shopping centers and commercial hubs outside of the community can only be reached by car or through major roads, except for 2 small commercial areas within the boundaries. The transportation system is somewhat disconnected from nearby neighborhoods and from the rest of the city. The major thoroughfares act as barriers for movement out of the community. The best way to access destinations outside the community is by automobile.
Since Charles is still very hungry, he calls a friend to give him a ride to the grocery store that is out of walking distance. He meets his friend across the street at the gas station, and they are on their way to the closest co-op. Luckily for Charles, he has nice friends.
The walkability of the area is less than ideal. The community of Fairview achieved the walkability score of 70 to 89, which is considered very walkable in that most errands can be achieved on foot. The data was gathered by the City of Calgary in April of 2011. However, when scoring individual locations, the average walkability score for residences further away from commercial areas was much lower, in the mid-50s, which would be considered somewhat walkable with some errands achievable by walking. Upon analysis of the amenities map, it is recognizable that the majority of amenities around the community are located to the west and to the north of Fairmount Drive, with minor amenities to the south. Area residents rely on traveling outside of their small walkable community to run errands and accomplish daily tasks, such as grocery shopping and social outings.
Charles and his friend return home, and after finally managing to have a meal, they decide to head back out into the community for some fun.
Social activities are limited within the community, with the center of social life in Fairview being focused around the small retail area on Fairmount Drive, which is home to amenities such as a pub and bowling alley.
They take a quick drive to the retail hub in the center of the community, where they wind down at the end of the day with some glow-in-the-dark bowling. This brings to an end today's episode of A Day in the Life, Charles Takes on Fairview.
As the community of Fairview looks towards the future, a new, long-term, sustainable plan for future generations will be needed, built off the existing strengths of the community. Historically, the community was centered around the school. However, currently the majority of the students at Fairview Junior High and Leroy Daniels Elementary are bused in from outside of the community. If the population of the area increases, these schools could serve as a great resource to the community, being in a central, walkable location in the community. There is a need to incorporate better multimodal transportation accessibility and connectivity to the existing systems, improve the sense of place, increase the diversity of land uses, and plan for increased residential densities. Fairview is a quiet, primarily residential community, sandwiched between major roadways, railway tracks, and industrial and commercial land uses. Due to its proximity to the larger city-wide transportation systems, Fairview has great potential to become a strong and sustainable community, well into its 100th year.